Oh, botch that. You guys didn't hear me. So, greetings, space travelers. Welcome home. You just tuned your dial to Space Style Radio, the only place where you can own the night. I'm your host, Mr. Rob G, and joining me is my brilliant co host here, Nicole Coley Weber. And tonight we're broadcasting to you on our terrestrial affiliates and digitally across on TalkStream Live, KMPL, and Odyssey Radio. Remember, you can access our archives for free at youtube.com/spaced out radio. And while you're there, please hit the subscribe button and don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where the options are endless. You can stay up to date with the S.O.R Newswire, get some official Spaced Out swag, plus rock out to some Bumblefoot, and so much more. We have an awesome show for you tonight. There's been a lot of talk. We've talked about this lately about when we had Jim Goodall on the show, if you remember. Jim Goodall talked about Bob Lazar and kind of hinted at some things that might be coming down the pipeline with Bob Lazar. And we actually have today Luigi Vendittelli, who is currently working with a couple projects, Project Gravitaur, and then also working closely with Bob Lazar to release an epic documentary that looks totally awesome. And I'm so, anticipating it. Can't wait to get him on to talk about it. And yeah, how you been doing, Coley?
I've been doing good.
Good. We're gonna get down to some
Excited for the
business.
guest tonight. Yeah, definitely.
We're gonna get it in. So with that being said, space travelers, can we go ahead and get you guys to join the Space Travelers Club? It's only $5 per month. You can join the Patreon or get some official Spaced Out swag at spacedoutradio.com. So let me go ahead and see who is in the chat, who came through, who is gracing us with their presence tonight, who decided to come in early enough to be in the number one spot. I just want to check and see. Let's see what we have. Let's see who we got. Drum roll, please. Race Fan gets the gold. Race Fan back in first place. You're getting your swag back, Race Fan. I see you there. Okay, good. We have Kurt M in the silver spot. And then we have Tamoth Man getting that bronze. Okay, I love it. Also, we have let's see, JMJ12 joining us tonight. I totally appreciate you coming in. Looks like a new name, and I love it. We got Carl Bittner. Carl Bittner, thanks for coming in. Let's see. We have Road Flare. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming and welcome. We have Greg Maloney. Thank you for stopping by Space Out Radio After Hours. Going to be a great show tonight. Let's see. Nancy Thames. Thank you for coming. And thank you for sending that message, Nancy. I'll be replying back to you soon. Thanks for coming tonight. Lavera Lucchini. Thanks for coming. Totally glad to see you here. Let's see. Paula Faust. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Let's see here. Richard Elmore. Thank you for coming in. Appreciate you. Chris 716. Thank you for coming in today or tonight or today, depending on where you're at in the world. Millennium. Thank you for coming through. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's going to be a great, great show. Monica, hola, S.O.R. fam. Thank you for coming in. JSCO77. Thank you for coming in. Totally appreciate you. Paranormal Pixie Laura saying hello, space travelers. Thanks for coming in. Grand Tavius Max. Thanks for joining us. Totally appreciate you.
Oh, yeah.
Severn Shot. Thank you for coming in. Totally appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us. Gizmo. Evening all. Thanks for coming. We got Donna Spencer. Thanks for coming on in. Hello, S.O.R. family and friends, Mr. Rob G and Nicole Coley Weber, and Luigi Vendittelli. So shout out to Luigi. Let's see here. We got Magneticus Attractus. Thanks for coming in, Magneticus.
Oh, Magneticus. Yeah.
We
Nice
got
to see you.
Wordlist. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for coming in. Facebook user. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for coming in. We got Jade. Thank you for coming in, Jade. What's the name of the Bob Lazar film? Well, we'll find out in a moment. Once we bring Luigi out, I'm sure he's gonna fill us in and maybe even have some additional treats to go with that. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. We got Chicago 420. Thank you for coming in, Chicago 420. We are not alone. We are not alone. And I think that might be a tip of the hat to our guest tonight. Thank you for coming in. Let's see. Maybe I said Donna Spencer, but hey, might as well say it twice if I said it once. Donna Spencer, thanks for coming in. Okay, Susie B officially has stepped in the building. Susie B, thank you for joining us.
With the beautiful brown hair. Yes.
With the flowy, wavy, full head of really, really beautiful hair. Let's see. Silent Listen. Oh, okay. Sliding here from Jessica's chat. Well, welcome. We totally appreciate you coming on over, spending some time with After Hours. And shout out to Jessica Jones, the Crypted Huntress.
If you haven't checked her out, definitely do so. Yeah, she's awesome.
Brown Dwarf. Good evening. Yeah, good evening too. We must be in the same time zone, so good evening, or at least in the same general time zone. Let's see, who else do we have? We're almost to the bottom here. You know, we like to bring everybody in. Roxanne Delgado, thank you for coming in. Totally appreciate it. Maybe I should skip this name. No, I'm not going to do that. Derek Galloway, thanks for coming in, Derek Galloway. Derek Galloway, that guy right there. John Manro, thanks for coming in. Appreciate you joining us tonight. Rat's Sass. Thanks for coming on in, Rat's Sass. I see what you did there. Christopher Heights, thank you for coming in. It says hi. Let's see. I swear I promise we're almost to the bottom. NeuroStream, thank you for joining us. I can't remember if I said Monica, so I'm gonna say it again. Monica, that's 2 shouts out tonight. We got Nicola Perry. Thanks for coming in, Nicola. I hope you saw that we did get your question last night, and we did ask it. And so I don't know if you were still there, but if not, you should go back and check it out. He answered your question last night. All right, Van Gold. Thank you for coming, aka Lovey Love, aka Dr. Love. And let's see, we got Digger Dog. Digger Dog, thanks for coming. Sovereign Cosmic Wildman, thank you for coming tonight. Excuse me. Boss Monster, thank you for coming, Boss Monster. Um, all right, that might be okay. We got Hero. Hero, thank you for coming. New names. Love it, love it, love it. Latro Genuile. Hopefully I said that wrong. Hey, greetings all. Thank you for coming in. And chat is bumping. So let me see. Oh, Black Dragon. Can't forget Black Dragon. Black Dragon. Thanks for coming in. All right. Looks like we are at the bottom of the list. So just want to thank everybody for coming in. Spaced Out Radio After Hours, the Sunday show. Before we get into the week with Mr. Dave Scott, Monday through Friday, 7 days a week, Spaced Out Radio here, 7 days a week, all the time. You can catch something going on here, something fantastic. So if you haven't subscribed, if you're just in for the first time, please consider hitting that subscribe button, hitting that notification bell, because it goes on 7 days a week. And, we're kicking around some ideas on some additional things that we may be doing here. So it's about to, it's what they call, what the kids call lit. It's about to get lit here at Spaced Out Radio. And you definitely don't want to miss. So what's been going on, Coley? What's been going on? How you been? You muted?
I have no idea why this does this, but I've not touched it at all. So, anyway, I've been doing good. Everything's going great today. So, yeah, looking
Good.
forward to the show.
Yeah, it should be
Yes,
awesome. And
yeah.
coming off
Bob Lazar.
yesterday, and yeah, we're doing some back-to-back stuff here, man. So it should be this is the pretty much the most epic weekend we've had so far here at the After Hours, and we continue. We insist on raising the bar constantly, so that's what you're gonna see going on here. So I totally appreciate you guys taking that ride with us, and yeah, that's what we're doing. I promise, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. Okay. All right. And so I'm just looking around. I think we got everybody in. So I'm not going to delay this too much longer because I really can't wait to get into conversation with our guest. I saw him talking, and when I connected the dots of what Jim Goodall was saying, and then we went ahead and connected the dots to this gentleman here. He's playing a big part in making this, bringing clarity to the Bob Lazar story. We just hear the verbal story, and I'm sure we if you are in ufology, you have heard the Bob Lazar story from various sources. But I think you're going to be kind of shocked once you see what Luigi has done with this. So we're going to go ahead and bring in our guest for the night, Mr. Luigi Vendittelli.
Hey guys,
How are you, Luigi?
I'm good.
Good, man. I'm so glad to have you on.
Thank you. Nice to be on.
Definitely. You're doing a lot of good things that I've been privy to, that I've seen, and you are really taking on something, and you're really doing a service for the people don't know yet, but they'll know after you tell them. You're doing a great service for a lot of people here in ufology. It's gonna be, I think, what super well accepted, very well appreciated, and I appreciate you for taking this on. So,
Well,
you
thanks.
know, I don't want to spill the beans on it, but what I do want to do is, with pretty much every guest we have, we like to get to know you and kind of see where you came from, what kind of brought you to where you currently are. So, and truthfully, if you have any experiences that the alien, ET, paranormal that you had along the way, please elaborate. But yeah, go ahead and start at the beginning. How we're gonna Luigi into to film and just into where you're at right now.
So I'll give you like a little brief introduction about, who I am. First of all, I'm from Montreal in Canada. Uh, I'm the president, CEO of a company called MOTIVO. So MOTIVO is kind of like our parent company, and within MOTIVO, we founded an organization called We Are Not Alone. And We Are Not Alone is the division of the company that is literally dedicated to these type of projects. So anything that has to do with UFOs, flying saucers, ETs, you name it, it's part of that division. And that actually started before the pandemic, and then the pandemic happened, so we had to kind of like put a big pause on that and then start everything afterwards. So just before the pandemic, I was working real closely with some of the witnesses that were at the Ruwa Zimbabwe primary school event in 1994. So I helped. I helped a little bit on the documentary film that has been done by Randall Nickerson. I was involved for close to 10 years uh, with one of the witnesses called Emily Trim. Helped her come public, and she was having a lot of difficulty at the beginning because she didn't really understand what was actually going on related to that story. So that's kind of my background. Prior to that, I was the national director for MUFON in Canada. So I was youngest member of MUFON in the world back in 1988 when I was much younger. When Bob Lazar was at S.O.R, I was just getting into MUFON. And basically, I'm uh, I'm a businessman. I'm a merchandiser. I've been making merch for pretty much the majority of my life. I spent years in China. I've traveled the world about 11 times. I've kind of used my business travels to also get to know a lot about this phenomenon. And after all these years, I decided to do something with Bob Lazar, and it's looks like it's working.
Okay, I mean, wow, that's a lot of great stuff right there, dude. That's powerhouse stuff right there, and a lot of things that I was unaware of. The Ruwa Zimbabwe case to point out, and then Emily Trim was she was the main character featured in the
In the
Ariel School phenomenon, right?
in the Ariel phenomenon documentary, correct? Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Okay.
right. Yeah.
So I think to me, and I don't know, maybe you can speak about how you feel about it. That is a very compelling case. I mean,
Oh, that's
you have all
incredible.
those kids, and you have to believe what it was that they saw. I mean, how do you feel about that case?
Oh, it's 100%. I have no doubt that that event happened on that day. I have no doubt that the kid. Well, they're all adults now, but we often say the kids, but they're
Yeah.
all over 30 today. They certainly saw something. It affected a lot of them. It caused them a lot of negative things in their life, whether it be judgment or uh, ridicule, and a lot of problems. And in fact, We Are Not Alone. I basically was born because of um, my affiliation with Emily and some of the other witnesses that were there. I figured I learned so much about what they'd gone through after that event, and became so close that I ended up realizing how detrimental something like that could be in society. We're getting better. Let's just say that society is getting pretty much better at having a conversation about this. But what happened in Zimbabwe is not just a flying saucer. It's not just a light in the sky. It's not just something on a radar. It was real contact. It was something that happened that was profoundly, in my opinion, one of the most profound events in modern times. We're talking about creatures, some living organism that is obviously intelligent, that decided to walk, or I don't know if they walked or appeared in front of kids and decided to communicate with them telepathically, if that's the only way that we could describe it, and provide messages about the planet, about technology. So, something like that is a little harder to digest for some viewers, because if they're just getting into this, what's going on with UFOs nowadays, the congressional hearings, you hear it in mainstream, but we're not talking about contact. We're just talking about things caught on radar. We're talking about objects. It's a different story. What happened at Ariel was a really, really different story.
So were you able to have contact then with the children, or were you like, what part did you play in the documentary? I wasn't familiar with that part of it either.
I was very much involved. You'll actually, there's a couple of scenes you do actually see me in the documentary. Some of the shots were actually filmed in my house when Randall was in Montreal filming.
Wow.
I basically was Emily's, I would say, her confidant. She was having a tremendous amount of emotional difficulties and a lot of anxiety talking about this. I was helping with facilitating that, making that easier for her, and allowing her to be able to explain what happened on that day and what happened afterwards. So it was a really profound time in my life, because I got to learn a lot about whatever it was. And it was, in my opinion, one of the most powerful. When I say powerful, I mean it was very deep. Whatever these creatures communicated affected not only Emily, but other. I got the chance to meet others and became very close with a couple of other ones. And it affected them in such a deep way that they still today have a lot of trouble addressing it or talking about it without having a lot of reservation about who they're talking to. They could be interviewed by Netflix and it still doesn't matter. They're still super,
Oh yeah, yeah.
affected by
You
it.
did the wrong people, yeah, that are around. Can I ask? Because I'm an experiencer, so I went through it, so I understand that emotional tug. In these children, what changes? I was a little bit older. What changes did you see in them, if any? Like, did you see them develop? Like, I always say, call them like little superpowers that you go when you get through something like this. Did you see any changes? Like, could you describe those when you talk about that?
I don't know if I would call them changes, or more so them, or I would speak mainly with my experience with Emily. She did so good over the years. She's been able to uh, come out of her shell a lot. Um, as far as like what they experienced, I don't think that it was something that would have empowered them on something. I think what it was they were a channel, in my opinion. Something communicated to them, someone communicated to them, and they're just basically saying what happened. And if you really think about what happened that day, or what happened at that event, I mean, this was a small, tiny elementary school in rural Zimbabwe. This was very much in the middle of nowhere. And the people around there, the kids were all from all over the world. There was a lot of missionaries that would come into Africa at the time. There was big problems in Zimbabwe and Botswana. So there was people coming from the Salvation Army or all sorts of different organizations, and they would send their kids to this elementary school. So this little tiny school in the middle of nowhere in Africa actually had a very diverse group of students, which was really interesting. So they were all from all over the world. It wasn't just like a bunch of kids from Zimbabwe.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that was
kept saying Emily, and it was like the Emily doesn't say, the name. Now that makes sense.
she's Canadian. Yeah, so Emily is Canadian. Liesel is from Great Britain. I mean, they're from everywhere, from Australia. They're from literally from everywhere. And the fact that this happened, and the fact that all these kids saw this and experienced this was really something, man. It says a lot about, I used to, when I used to talk about this a little bit more in the past, I said, if we had to make a decision, if we had a life threatening decision to make, meaning somebody puts a gun to your head and says, who do you believe, a Harvard lawyer or an 8-year-old child? And you have to make a decision right there. Our instincts will immediately go, most of us will say an 8-year-old child, because a kid is most likely going to tell you that, or you're going to know if they're lying or they're going to say the truth. So the fact that this happened to kids, in my opinion, is very telling, because it now relies on all of us to kind of have this faith that they're saying the truth. And there's like a ton of them. We're talking dozens and dozens. So, for all these children to have seen that and experienced that, and still to this day, 30 years later or something, I think we're talking, it's almost impossible to think that this didn't happen. So if it did happen,
how did you get? I apologize. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yes. Go ahead.
I was just wondering your connection to it, how you got involved in it.
Oh, it was, I was, like I said, I was in MUFON years ago, and I actually ended up going to one of their symposiums in the United States. I think it was in 2014 or 15. I can't remember exactly the year. And James Fox, a producer who makes documentaries, who's amazing, by the way, was presenting a potential project that he was going to do at the time, and introduced that in the crowd, said there's one of the students from the Ariel incident is in the crowd. So after his talk, I wanted to go and see whoever this student was. And I remember when I arrived there, she was standing next to a friend of hers, and she was trembling. She was absolutely like frightened out of her mind. I remember seeing that. And there was like so many people around her, almost completely oblivious to the fact that she was shaking. And they were like, what did they look like? What did they tell you? What did they say? Can you tell me more? I want to know. I want to know. And you could see that people were just like wanting to know stuff. So I pushed my way through, and I got right in front of her, and I turned around. And I told everybody to shut the fuck up. Can you not see she's trembling? It was something that I couldn't believe nobody was paying attention to. And that kind of sparked a friendship, because we ended up walking out with her friend, and then we ended up meeting in the restaurant, and we started talking, and from that, her and I connected on Facebook, and then, my God, we became super close friends. I would invite her to Montreal so that she could have an opportunity to get out of her day-to-day, I guess, trauma. She was going through something at that time, and she was actually painting a lot. She was drawing and painting a lot of the things that she had seen, which was really amazing artwork. And I got her to Montreal. I introduced her to a bunch of people so that she could have a little bit of a social life, because she had become very, very closed at a certain point. And basically, I started by the way, just so I'll give you another little piece of my history. Not only was I in MUFON, but I also was very dedicated. I researched abductions for a large part of my life. And David Jacobs, who happens to be one of the leading experts in that, actually trained me for a year and a half. So I was very fortunate to have David as somebody who taught me a lot about the phenomenon. David, at the time when I was at his house, showed me all of Bud Hopkins' work when
Oh wow.
when Bud was alive. So I was able to uh, go in his basement and have access to all of Bud Hopkins' files, his recordings, his abduction recordings. So I had a lot of
Amazing.
history. Yeah, I had a lot of history there to be able to understand. Not she hadn't been abducted, but she had had some serious phenomenon happen to her. And later, as we became closer and she started having more trust in talking to me, we ended up going to Arizona. I made her, I was able to convince her to speak publicly about her case. And while we were in Arizona, after she had done that, we were together, and we were talking privately. And she says, "I'm going to tell you everything now." And she completely opened up about everything that happened. And my God, like, it was whatever you could potentially think of that happened at Ariel school was multiplied by 1,000 of other things that happened afterwards. And I could understand her trauma because she came from a very Christian family, very religious, very much in the mindset of, this doesn't happen. There's no aliens, there has
Oh
to
yeah.
be,
Oh yeah.
so all that was, yeah, that was a big chunk of my life that I invested in that. And I'm still very close with Emily. Emily unfortunately just went through surgery. She posted it on her Instagram, so I can talk about it. But she had a brain tumor removed recently, and she's got to go through some chemo and stuff. So we're all praying for Emily right now.
Wow, that's heavy. Definitely prayers for Emily for sure. I guess let me ask you this. You stated that there had been so much more that they had gone through after even the event. Being part of the film and then having these experiences come back together, did you get a general sense of them holding this in pretty much their entire life? Because I'm sure initially there was ridicule, and none of the teachers believed what they said. So yeah, did they bottle that in? And was this the release like once the film came out, or?
Yeah, they bottled it in, and in fact, when the film came out, or whenever they talk about it, I wouldn't call it a release. I would call it like opening up a trauma. It's the
Yeah,
opposite. It's like they're not I don't know all of them, so I could speak only to the ones that I'm very familiar with. The moment you approach the subject, the second you get into it, it depends what you ask. So, they can easily say, yeah, there was a light in this, or we saw a disc, or we saw craft, and then we saw these beings or whatever. If they're talking about it as if they're far away, that's one thing. But if they start talking about when they got contacted, it just goes into a complete, like, you could just see it,
yeah,
it's like asking a rape victim what exactly was happening to you when you were being raped. They don't want to talk
yeah,
about that. So it's
exactly.
it's kind of a very traumatic thing that happens.
And
Can I
I'll
ask
s-
you?
I'll add this to that. I'll add this to that because I recently, and I've watched the Ariel School. I've watched the different documentaries that have covered that. And it wasn't until the one that just played on Netflix recently, where they went back over
Yeah.
that they pretty much the girls showed the distance from them to the ETs, which was like 6 feet or
Oh, even
something like
closer.
that.
Oh, even closer. Yeah, even
So I
closer.
can understand that trauma, especially being that close, because the way that it was covered in the other documentaries, you would think that they were over there,
Yeah.
maybe 50 feet away, but no, they were like really close to these
Really close.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's mind blowing when you think about that.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Um,
Emily was I mean, she was at an arm's length. She could touch.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's heavy.
And they were
Would you
in
go with
our
that?
space and time. Like they saw like literally like our space and time, or did they go to their space and time? There's definitely a difference.
They were. You have to remember they were kids. They were not
Right.
expecting. So they were. What Emily said was, and she painted some. I have a beautiful painting of hers that explains what she saw, and she says
Mhm.
it looked like when there's like that heat wave over asphalt when it gets really hot. There's like a wavy in the air, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
She said that they felt like they were like in a bubble of some type of a wavy spatial bubble, and it felt like they were not in the same normal everyday outside.
Right.
So,
Right.
and that you have to.
That's
And
fascinating right there.
yeah, and it's something that's very what do you call it? It's something that was explained by an adult, but from their memory of being a child. So
Right.
it's like they Emily said, I was playing with Liesel and we're just running around, and suddenly we hear something and there's a flash, and then suddenly there's these two beings right in front of us, and they're two little girls just hopping around playing, and suddenly they see these two, whatever the hell they were, with these big black eyes, that as soon as they locked eyes, they kind of started getting some images appear in their head. And Emily said they were hovering over they were not touching the ground. They were about a foot off the ground. And she said one of them tried to touch Liesel, so Liesel was kind of in a trance and put her hand out, and Emily grabbed Liesel's arm like, no, like she was scared that the being was going to take her. And it happened like that. I mean, it happened so fast. It wasn't like they didn't progressively have the time to figure out what the hell was going on. This thing just happened.
And it's important what you said about locking eyes, because I had that same experience. And I said, it's like, as soon as I call it lock in, whether it be a craft or whether it be, I mean, it locks into you as soon as you're like into it. Yeah, definitely. That's so interesting. Did the bubble appear around all of them, or was it just like, can you talk just a little bit more about that? Because I've never heard that before, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah. The one thing that was, what they said, I'm actually gonna bring a little piece of Bob Lazar in this, because when I met Bob Lazar and we were having our initial conversations, Bob was very close to the technology. I mean, he was studying the craft and the whatever it was doing. And one of the witnesses at Ariel said that she saw exactly what Bob had explained, but she felt it. And she was saying, I could feel something from it. I was feeling something from it. And Bob was fascinated, because he says, that's incredible, because we never felt that. He says we would see it, but never feel it. And the kids were saying they felt something. So it was as if like there's like some type of a very powerful connection to this, whether it be the beings or the technology or whatever it is. Nobody really can answer that professionally, but there seems to be some type of connection there.
There absolutely is. There's times like when I really get into like watching or doing whatever, I feel them. I know like when they're around, and I can usually spot like right in the sky. And it's just it's so hard to explain, but you become locked into them. And so that would be very confusing as a child. Like I'm trying to think of, like, wow, came here and there's like this bubble around. But I want to just ask more about that, because in my experience, they said that we weren't on our planet because of a contamination. So I was wondering, when you said about putting them in or going into some sort of dome or off this, if there wasn't, were they all under it, or could you just kind of describe a little bit more about it?
That's it. That's something that I would like to know. I would love to have an opportunity to speak with some of the other students myself. I didn't have the opportunity. I do know that there was a few that did say that they felt there was something,
Mhm.
Emily described it as a bubble, while other ones just said it felt like there was something. So they didn't say a bubble, but there was something. Whether
Right.
that something was physical to some of them, or whether that was just the fear or whatever that was going on, it's really hard to say, because you have to remember that they were at recess. This kids, man,
Mhm.
they just, what the hell is going on? So
Yeah.
something really intense happened to them in a very, very quick manner, by the way, and it completely messed with them because they communicated, they received messages.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, imagine being like 7, 8 years old, and you're playing, and all of a sudden there's this like creature with big black eyes, and you start seeing imagery in your mind, and it's
Yeah.
giving you
Well, I grew up seeing spirits, so that's you know what I mean? But spirits are different. Like, they couldn't reach out and touch you. Like ET, when I experienced ET, is like, you knew you could reach out and touch them. So I kinda get going around as a child and how weird, because it used I mean, in the ridicule and how, like, oh, especially children, people be like, "No, they're just
of
kids.
course.
They probably
Yeah,
exaggerated
absolutely.
it."
Yeah, exactly.
But that kinda stuff is etched in you. That's like, from that point forward, you are not the same person at
Well,
all.
and it's like some of them, like Rob, you said you saw all the documentaries on it, and there's some really good stuff that's been done on it, and you see and you hear them say what happened to them. You got The Phenomenon by James Fox, did a really good job at it. The Encounters on Netflix is not bad. The best one, in my opinion, is the one that Randall Nickerson did, which is Ariel Phenomenon, because it really does go deep into this whole story that kind of has uh, a lot in it. But if you think about what they said they were asked to go to school right away. Like, they're just like, forget this. This just didn't happen. You got to go back to class and learn whatever the teacher's teaching you.
Right.
Go back home and have dinner and don't talk about it, because this doesn't exist. And I mean,
Go
like,
on with
that
your
must.
life. Yeah. Because they had to go back to school for multiple years after that, finish school, and just never talk
Yeah.
about it again. And
So
that
it
had to be tough.
I can tell you that it messed some of them up big
For
time.
sure.
Yeah, yeah.
The
Now,
children's
when
therapist
you
for 7 years.
when
Stuff
you
like that does mess a child's head up,
Oh,
for sure.
when
absolutely.
you guys were digging into that, did you guys ever at any point compare it, like what you were discussing, compare it with what happened over at the Westall school, and
No,
and then
no.
and
I,
then
I,
because
I'm sure that Randall must have had conversations with them. I never did. I actually, with Emily, I did, but it was you know, I'll just to give you like a, if you say to Emily, there's another school in Australia this happened to, and Kraft Lennon, there was kids there, and she doesn't care. Like, it completely doesn't care. Like, she says, I don't care. She goes, that's not what happened to me. I can only speak about what happened to me. And all these people are not UFO people. They're not interested in this phenomenon at all. You know what I mean?
right,
So for them, it was like a trauma, and then they don't want to talk about it because it traumatized them. So as soon as, like, they find out something else happened, they're just like, you know, yeah.
now for you, what would you think the purpose of these things visiting these schools are, like if you had to just guess?
Pardon?
If you had to just guess what the reason that these things seem to be frequenting schools
Oh,
and
wow.
attempting contact with children, do you think they're aware that these are children when they're attempting this contact, or
That
what do you think about that?
that is so, like, it's impossible to know. Like, that's the $1 billion question. I'd love to know that as well. Like, why did this happen? Why did they go to Ariel? Why did they go to Westall? Why did this happen? I'm sure it must have happened other places we don't even know about. Like, the fact that this happened in rural Zimbabwe and the fact that it got to the news and it became something that we know about, that the fact that it got out is incredible in itself,
Yeah,
because I mean, who knows what other stuff has happened around the world in rural areas, and we have no
Never,
idea.
yeah, never
Yeah.
heard of it.
So yeah, why this happens? It's man, I wish I had an answer. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's puzzling. Yeah, it's definitely puzzling. And yeah, like you said, it's $1 million question. And it's just when you hear about a lot of contact from a lot of different individuals, but to have like two cases that did happen to get reported, and then in both cases we had firsthand contact, is just strange. There's definitely more to that. But I mean, that's cool that you were tied into that. I didn't even know that. So that's like a bonus actually. But you
Mhm.
did state also that you studied abductions.
Right.
So as far, let me ask you this then, being that you studied that, what do you think? Because experiences will tell you different things depending on what they say they experience.
Of course.
What do you like looking from 10,000-foot view? What do you think may be some of the reasons behind the abduction? Some think human, what do you call that, DNA splicing and things of that nature. What do you think about it? What do you feel?
Well, that's a like that's again, that's whatever I'm going to say is conjecture. Like
Yeah,
if you think about it, I don't think there's just one species. I personally don't think it's just one species. So,
right.
just based on that, we just open up Pandora's box and we have no idea what's going on, because you have a lot of cases that do point back in the 80s and in the 1990s. There was a lot of cases that do seem to point towards the genetic for some type of reproduction requirement, like something to do with our reproduction. There's no doubt there was some of that. And then there's the other people who have these experiences that have don't seem to have that associated to them during the experience. So is that also because it's the same species doing something else, or is it another species doing something else? If I base myself on David Jacobs, which I agree with him on many points, but don't agree 100% on everything,
Right.
there has to have been some type of hybridization program based on the evidence. And this is really factual, good quality work that he did for decades, which points in that direction. He never says, I'm 100% certain, but he says the data definitely points in that direction. So we have to keep that data and say, okay, well, maybe that's a possibility. Then you have the ones that have absolutely nothing to do with some type of genetic program. These are other ones that seem to be in a social program. It's something to do with social integration. And I mean, there's cases out there that have been widely reported. It's also in documentaries. I had the chance to talk to a lot of them. One woman who was abducted, and the creatures did not look like the typical grays. They looked like these insect creatures. And then these insect creatures obviously did not communicate or have uh, the same pattern of the grays. So what the hell is that? You know what I mean? So what are we talking about that? And then you have the other ones where they'll meet these human looking beings. They look, and you would never be able to distinguish the difference between us and them.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, and this is something that is so controversial, because again, everything we're talking about here when it comes to contact with the kids, or contact in general, abductions, encounters, experiences, this is the topics that I usually, reserve for specific conversations, because if you're talking to general public and you want to have like a you want to educate the general public, you can't do
Yeah.
that in an hour.
Right.
It's going to require them to go through years of research to actually better understand how multi-layered the
Mm.
abduction phenomenon is, or the experience phenomenon is. Whatever is happening, or whatever has been happening, is fascinating.
Mhm.
I am convinced at 100% there is something to it. I don't think
Right.
that it's like, everybody's like, oh, this is like sleep paralysis, or they're just looking for attention. That's bullshit. I mean, anybody who knows about this phenomenon, anybody who researches that phenomenon, would never come to that conclusion at the end. I mean, there's obviously probably cases of that. Yeah.
Mhm.
There's probably a few people who misinterpreted something, of course, but that doesn't mean that the phenomenon is not real. It doesn't.
Right.
I mean, what John Mack studied, what Bud Hopkins studied, what David Jacobs studied, what Carla Turner studied, what Barbara Lamb studied. I mean, these are people that dedicated decades of their lives to a phenomenon and all come to an agreement that there's something going on. So, and we could you could talk to mainstream population all day long and say, hey, look at that, we caught something in the sky, there's an object in the sky, or there's got it on radar, we got it on, and everybody gets excited and they look at it and they go, that's cool, that's possible. And then the next question, which you can't ask them because it breaks their brain, is why do you think they're here? I mean,
Yeah,
so,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, that's a
you know,
whole nother ball game.
so,
That is a whole.
that's a completely different story. Yeah,
Okay, I have 2 questions for you, if that's all right, Luigi.
sure.
I'm very intrigued by this. Are you yourself Have you experienced anything with craft and ET?
No,
Have you
actually, I've seen craft.
Mhm.
I've actually during an investigation in northern Quebec, I photographed it, so I've seen it. I've seen
Oh,
it 100%. Um,
and you've worked with people so that have, like, similar there's a lot of similarities I find out with experiencers, but then my next question is, I thank you for doing all the work with MUFON and everything. I'm really intrigued. I'm gonna start looking into more of your work. So, with Lazar, so Lazar was tied in with that case, or where did he come into play? Because you brought him in, a little bit
oh
ago, and I
God, no,
just didn't
no,
understand the
Lazaro is.
connection.
Yeah, no, Bob Lazar is a completely different thing. I mean, what happened with Bob Lazar was it really started off as a company when we started really working towards the We Are Not Alone division. We
Mhm.
wanted to create something really cool. We wanted to create the most realistic, high quality replica model of a real flying saucer that has ever been made. That was something I wanted to do. As somebody who's
So
made
you and
stuff.
Bob Lazar made the sports model together?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I didn't know
So
that. Oh,
yeah,
wow. Okay.
Yeah,
so
yeah. That's what he's here. That's what he's here to show us today. And
that's right.
he
So
actually has provided some information that we'll be looking at.
I knew that he
and
was a part of it, but I didn't know that was that deep in there. So that's
well, yeah,
fascinating.
I've been working with Bob now for, well, very closely working on recreating that for like 2 years now. So
Mhm.
this whole thing started back in 2021, and I reached out to his office, spoke to Zach, who his right hand man at United Nuclear, where Bob lives, and I proposed the idea. I said, "Look, I'm a guy who makes stuff. I know what I'm
Mhm.
doing." I said, "I'm familiar with the phenomenon, but I'm not going to talk about aliens or anything about that. I'm not going to go into my background." I said, "I'm going to talk to you about my professional work that I do, which is making things, making really cool things." And I said, "I
Mhm.
want to make a flying saucer." And so Zach said, "Well, look, I'll let Bob know, and if he's interested, I'll let you know." So anyway, next day called me and said he's interested to talk to you. So I had a conversation with Bob Lazar, and it was a super cool conversation. He was the one questioning me most of the time because he wanted to know who I was. And he says, "What do you do? How would you, if you did make this craft, how would you go about it?" So I started explaining all the technical stuff that I'm familiar with in making things. And I guess he must have realized, okay, you do know how to make stuff, so let's talk, let's make this thing happen. So that's how I got close with Bob Lazar.
Wow,
Okay.
that's
And then
awesome.
what we'll do, because for that, we'll say, because we're about to go to break here in like 5 minutes. So we'll do the Bob, everything you're currently doing in hour two, and then we have two questions related to what we've already talked about from the
Sure.
audience. First question is from Brown Dwarf, and he asks, have any of the abduction cases that you've researched matched the missing 411 criteria?
Well, no, not really directly to the 411 criteria. I've actually met David Pilatus, great guy. I'm very fascinated by the work that he's done, but no, unfortunately, not anything that I was involved in. I do believe that there's something very bizarre. I actually would say there's one case in particular in southwestern Ontario that maybe has some link to that. But it was somebody who had very strange things happen to them uh, throughout many years, and it gave me the impression that maybe there's some type of freaky dimensional there's something interdimensional going on, and it's not just like somebody arriving with a flying saucer picking you up and leaving. I think there's something a lot bigger going on that we're not we don't know yet. We don't know how to describe it, explain it, or understand it.
Okay, great answer. And we have second question here, which is JSCO77. Luigi, did Emily relate these beings to relate to them as ETs?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I think that's pretty amazing. I mean, because one of the big things that they did say was like, in this area, they, ETs and aliens aren't really the thing that they're dealing with as far as as far as pop culture goes in the area that they're in. So for them to realize that that's what this is pretty amazing at that age.
Well, when she was very young, if the question is, did she relate to that being alien when she was like 8 years old? I'd be honest, I don't know. I don't think she knew. I don't think she remembers exactly when that happened. What she did know is that it was certainly not human and it was not an animal. She kept on saying, at first we thought it was an animal because they're playing outside of the
Oh,
school.
yeah.
So when they first got approached, they were like, "What kind of animal is that?" Because it's standing and it's flying, it's hovering, like it's floating off the ground, and it's doesn't look like an animal. So they clearly knew it wasn't an animal and it wasn't human. So at that point,
Yeah, what is it?
What the hell is it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like that. What the hell is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, Luigi, right now we're actually going to pause for the break, and we'll be back with hour two with Luigi Vendittelli. We're going to be talking some Bob Lazar. This one, you guys just sit back. You're going to be amazed at the work this guy has done. And I loved it when I saw it. But we'll be right back. You guys just hang right there, only on Spaced Out Radio. Thanks. All right, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio as we jump into hour number 2. I'm your host, Mr. Rob G, and with me is the amazing Nicole Coley Weber and our guest, Luigi Vendittelli. And we're going to jump into Project Gravitaur and also the documentary film that he's putting together, which looks totally awesome. I know you guys are all going to want to go and see this, especially after he details the lengths that they've gone to pretty much bring the story that Bob Lazar has told that we've heard many times before into almost reality. Before we jump into that, though, to all the space travelers out there, consider taking the next step and join the club. That's right. You can join the S.O.R. Space Travelers Club for as little as $5 by joining our Patreon. Get some official Spaced Out swag at spacedoutradio.com. All right, so Luigi, we can go ahead and get started with this. Kind of tell us what you know about the company and how you got to the point to where you even thought to create this.
All right, yeah. So, like I said, it started off with the idea of making a perfect replica of the flying saucer. And when I went to see Bob, Bob said, "Okay, you know what? Let's do this. Come and see me." So I went out there, and the reason why I went out there is I said it's going to just be better that we're sitting side by side and we start taking all dimensions together. We start, I gotta have all the technical data so I could bring it back and create the craft. And I went out there, spent, I think it was like the first time I went there, I think it was like 3 days. And Bob immediately said, don't come to United Nuclear, come directly to my house. We'll do it directly here and it's going to be easier for us. And I said, great. And I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I never met Bob Lazar. So one thing I can say is this is probably for a lot of people who like Bob Lazar, they'll like to hear what I'll say. For the people who don't like Bob Lazar, they will have no choice to hear this because Bob is without a doubt one of the most genuine, humble guys I've ever met in my life. First of all, the guy's brilliant. Okay. And not only is he brilliant, but he's a super cool person. And he's so down to earth, like he's a completely normal person. And there's a lot of haters out there say a lot of bad things about Bob Lazar. And all I have to say is you don't know the man. So, he was very forthcoming, very open to helping the project. This project was not something that he was going to benefit monetarily from. This was something that I approached him and I said, we would love to have your input so that if we make this thing happen, at least we could say you were there to guide us and it's the official model. So we spent like 3 days and we went through every single technical detail of that craft, from everything that he knew, because there's other parts of it that he didn't know. Unfortunately, he doesn't know anything about what was on the upper level of the craft, so we couldn't identify any details there. So I came back to my office with like a mountain of information, told my team we're going to start putting this together. We decided to put it up we decided to create a digital file of the craft, and that took a while. And not only did it take a while, but there was more questions that were happening. So, although I had a lot of stuff covered when I'd seen him, when we were putting it together, everybody's like, okay, you got to call Bob and ask him that. So we actually have a book at the office that it's like a giant big binder, and it's questions for Bob. So everybody would always write down, like anybody on the team, okay, wait, I got to write this because you got to ask Bob this. And so we had, like, at the very at the very end of our first run at it, we created a digital file. We had 178 technical questions for Bob following.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So we had built like a big document. It was like about 90 pages of technical stuff. And then I went back to see Bob in Oregon. I said, I got too many questions and I need to be there. And it says, come on over. It went back and we covered 178 questions. And that made the whole team and I complete a 370-page book on the craft.
Wow.
And once we had that, we decided that we were going to start creating it, like not just a technical file on computer. We decided to create it in a 3D format, and we decided to do that initially in Blender. And that was something that we saw was a very good tool to get this. I mean, it's one of the most common 3D tools. And as we were progressing to do that, I started hiring a team because I said, well, if we're going to be doing the craft, might as well also do what's around the craft. So the environment that it was sit in, because I had asked Bob all these questions, you know, where was it? It was in the hangar. How did it sit in the hangar? How was, you know, because when you talk about the craft, you eventually have no choice but to say, well, how did they get in there? Oh, well, there was these little stairs. Oh, okay. Well, where was the craft in the hangar? And then we started realizing, okay, we got to build the hangar. And so I hired people from all over the world. I mean, I had people from Japan, Lithuania, Finland, Sweden, Great Britain, Canada, literally from everywhere. And every person had a task in charge to build this thing. And by the time we were able to do the craft, and then we were into the hangar, the technology was getting better. And by the way, we went from Blender to now building it in Unreal Engine, which is a really cool tool, by the way.
Awesome tool.
So this thing's gonna fly, right?
Well, I mean, it's all 3D. It's all 3D. It's not a physical object. We didn't build.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if you guys were gonna go take the next step.
No, well, not yet. Not yet. Not yet. So let's.
I had to ask.
Yeah, let's see how super successful this is. So we went from we then at the time it was only Unreal Engine 4 that was available. So we started building the environment, the assets were being built out of Blender, then put into Unreal, and we were cut with all the equipment. Bob was explaining there was a plasma cutter, there was tanks, and so we not military tanks. I mean just tanks with liquid inside. And so we were basically recreating the entire environment where this craft was being housed. And as time progressed and as the team was working, I could see how incredibly realistic it started to look. And Bob was also having Zoom calls with us going like, my God, that looks so good. That looks so real. And so I basically said to everybody, I said, all right, we're going to be going like all the way here. I said, this project is going to go from making a craft to we're going to build the entire Area 51 compound. We're going to build the whole Groom Lake all the way to Papoose Mountain Range, the Papoose Lake, and S.O.R, where the crafts, where the project was being, where the reverse engineering was happening. So we built the whole thing. And it took us about a year and a half to build it all. So it's
a model, or how big is this? In
a 3D environment, it's about 15 miles wide. Like it's humongous. Yeah. It's like huge. Like if you decided to put your goggles on and you wanted to walk, I mean, you could walk a long time. It's amazing. So we got. We refer to satellite data, Russian satellite data, to get the terrain out there because it's secret. You can't get it off. You can't just get exact terrain details off Google. That's just not going to happen. So we built the whole thing. We built the craft, obviously. We built the hangar. We built the whole base, the corridor, the 8 adjacent hangars that were there. And not only did we build it at the time using Unreal Engine 4, but Unreal Engine itself was evolving as we were doing this. So as the tech was updating, we were updating the whole project, merging it onto Unreal Engine 5. Now we're at Unreal Engine 5.3. We're now also using metahumans, which we've recreated the Bob Lazar, what do you call it? The people that were there. So Dennis Mariani,
Right.
Barry Castillo, all the people that he had interacted with at S4, including security guards. So the
That's
whole thing has been
crazy.
completely built. Yeah.
So you're looking at it through VR goggles, right?
So the way it works now, which is amazing, is that Unreal, which Epic Games, which owns the Unreal Engine, they created it so that you can also use it for film. So the same environment that we have
Yeah.
now is going to be launched in a film with Bob Lazar himself. We actually have hours of documented interviews with Bob, stuff that is super, super cool. And then we had Bob in Montreal on a green screen, so we're gonna actually be able to bring him into the environment, which is really cool because he'll be able to explain the craft as if he's actually there.
Right.
And then from that, once the film is launched, which by the way, the film's name is Lazar, the Original Whistleblower. That's the name of our documentary film.
Which is awesome. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I'm so glad that somebody else picked it up because I think that Bob Lazar got a bad name from some of the people who produced it in the past. Like I've completely flip-flop on Bob Lazar, and hearing people's own testimony on him. So yeah, I say everybody just give him a chance. This is
Oh, absolutely.
maybe,
I mean, I can tell you that, the guy is legitimate. I believe 100% the guy's legitimate. If he's lying, he's the best liar I've ever met in my life. I have a great bullshit, meter. I
Right.
could totally
Me
tell,
too.
and I cannot. There's not one time that I went, like there's not one second that Bob made me question whether he was, being deceiving or not even once. So I really
So is
and
this
that goes.
about getting his story straight and straightening out? Because that's kind of what I got from
Well,
the different weeks.
our documentary film is
Mhm.
going to be fully focused on his experience at S4.
Okay.
So anything that has to do with Bob Lazar in Los Alamos, anything that has to do with Bob Lazar in Las Vegas, anything that has to do with Bob Lazar after S4, other than coming public, we're not
Mhm.
covering that. The reason why we're not covering that is because we're going to be offering the world a absolutely visual stunning masterpiece of what happened at S4. So we had to limit that because there's so much to show at S4. I mean, we're talking about a top secret reverse engineering program in the 1980s of like
Right.
9 extraterrestrial spacecrafts. So it's really we really hope people like what we've created because not only are the visuals stunning, but you actually have Bob Lazar supporting and
Mhm.
speaking about it. He's narrating the movie. You know what I mean? So he's
Right.
so happy to see what we've created that he's been so helpful he says this is a perfect opportunity for me to have all the correct information out there. He says because he didn't have to tell us, I could tell you, is that there's a lot of wrong data on Bob Lazar out there on the internet. It's
Yeah.
crazy how much crap is out there.
And I'll tell you this, and this may not translate, but it will translate in a moment once we get into these with some of the treats Luigi has brought with him today. But for people out there, like this isn't a game, or it's in no sense of the word. Unreal Engine 5 is an engine that allows you to create basically true to life
Mhm.
graphics, so you
Oh,
can
yeah.
almost not differentiate between actual life and then what's created in this engine.
Right,
So just keep that in mind, and now listen to what he's saying. This is going to be almost as if you were there, like
Yeah.
literally there.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
it's totally awesome.
In fact,
And Luigi, whenever you're ready for me to bring those up, just let me
sure.
know. And then before you go, I just want to let people know that you can ask Luigi questions. Just put them in all caps, and then we'll get ask him those at the end of the hour. Go ahead, Luigi.
I was gonna say you're absolutely right about the Unreal Engine, about how realistic it makes images become. It's
Mhm.
scary, actually, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. It's scary. It became so real that I don't believe a lot of stuff anymore because of how incredibly real this stuff looks. And me and Bob actually had agreed when he was in Montreal. We said, let's do a little 5-minute video together, sitting side by side, that basically explains the beauty of this technology and the dangers of it, so that we
Yeah.
could so that we put ourselves out there and saying, look guys, we use this technology to make you see what it is that Bob Lazar saw in 88 and
Mhm.
89, but on the same, using the same technology. We need to send out a caution that if people know how to use the technology, they can
Yep.
create so many things that are not real, that it's very scary today. So we
That is
wanted to
that is
say that.
scary. Yeah. So what do you think though? I mean, like it's becoming harder and harder and harder, especially like going back 7 years, when I was getting videos of things coming down. I mean, you now you have, I mean, it's CGI. It makes that look like nothing. So when you come into this AI element, how are we going to know? Because your brain, being in that realistic of a situation, your brain can't tell the difference if that's true or if that's
Well,
not
there's
true. It
there's
documents it.
I think things are gonna get really serious in the next 2 years in that type of
Mhm.
tech. What we're seeing now is already incredible.
Right.
There's so many different softwares. We got selected by another company that is owned by Steven Spielberg, who created a technology that can help us with what we're doing. So there's going to be some really cool stuff that we're going to have into the movie that will render it even more realistic. It's just so cool, but it's still very scary, because if you see what it could do, you just sit back and you go, I don't believe anything anymore, because everything could be completely faked. I mean, and
Yes. Yes, yes, I know. That's
yeah,
how can we, there's gotta be something because I'm seeing things. I'm like, these deep fakes are getting better and better and better
it's gonna
at what
get. I
they're doing,
mean,
you
it's not
know?
gonna go away. It's just gonna get better. I mean, we're always learning. Like the team is, every single day there's something new comes out, and they're already like, okay, we got to do it this way because now we could make it faster and better. And look at the render, and you're like, my God. I mean, it's like it's super fast technology. It's like it's moving at such an incremental pace, and it's
Yes.
beautiful. I mean, look, if you know how to use it, it's a little expensive to do this, by the way. If
Mhm. Oh,
somebody
yeah.
wants to hire a team to do this, it's not like getting a logo made. Some people are like, oh, it's just a computer graphic. Somebody drew it. It's like, no,
No, this is intense,
it's
yeah.
not the same thing.
You have
So
14 miles, that's pretty yeah,
yeah,
that's
that's
intense.
it's big. So, but what's fascinating is the details you can get from it. So once you know what you're doing with it, and we're going to be adapting it in our film, and
Mhm.
also the same environment, we're going to be launching a secondary product with it after the film is released, after the film is in the market. We're going to be launching a virtual reality product called S4 The Experience. That's going to be following that. And
Oh,
it'll
yeah.
allow anybody, it'll be probably published on Steam. So anybody who has a cell phone, an iPad, a tablet, a computer, a supercomputer, whatever, or the goggles, could go check out S4 and interact with stuff. By the way, you could
Can
actually
you get it from, like, an Oculus? Like, can you
yeah,
go on Oculus and get
you could
okay,
do,
cool.
yeah, absolutely. And
Awesome.
you could interact, you could pick stuff up, you could put things together, you
Mhm.
could turn lights on and off, open doors, you could take equipment and cut through the craft. I mean, it's really, really cool. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. And like I say, that's when I saw it, it blew my mind. I was like, you are on to something with this here.
Did you
You are
guys see
going
our
to blow a lot of
Did you guys
minds.
see our teaser trailer, by the way?
No, no,
Oh,
where is it at?
Hmm.
Because I can
what? You
Oh, I
haven't?
did. I did. I saw it. Yeah, I did.
I
Oh,
haven't
you
Because
seen
I
the
was
did?
trailer.
on Lazar. I was looking for. I was hot on his trail. I said he's going to come out with something. So this
Yeah,
is.
we came up with a teaser trailer on Back to the Future Day because we actually I had an idea. This is such a big like this whole project was so serious for so long, and I wanted something lighthearted into it. And I remember thinking we're going to be bringing people back to 1988. So I thought, how do we make something so serious fun a little bit, because it really was like very technical, very serious for a long time. And I thought, why don't we try to, maybe get a time machine, and so we bring people back. And how that worked was I eventually found out that there's a company in the United States that rents the DeLorean time machines from Back to the Future.
No
And
way. That's awesome.
I reached out to the owner. He immediately got back to me and said to me, he goes, yeah, we have him. I said, do you have one in Las Vegas? He goes, yes, we do. And I said, well, I'm working on a project. You probably don't know the guy. Used to work at Area 51, and he apparently reverse engineer flying saucers. And the guy answers, he goes, are you kidding? He goes, you're talking about Bob Lazar. I said, so you know him? He goes, of course I do. He goes, not only do I know Bob Lazar, he goes, I'm an aerospace engineer, and I worked at Groom Lake at Area 51 for years.
Oh
Wow.
wow.
And I'm like, you're
They're
kidding me,
legit.
man. And so it totally, like, we were like, okay, we're doing this. So I called Bob and I said, would you like to go to Nevada? We go to a dry lake bed not far from Area 51, and we bring the Back to the Future DeLorean there, and we make you go back to 1988 with it. And he says, let's do it. So he was great. We had a
I
blast.
found it. I found it. Are we able to show it with there's no copyright music or anything
Oh,
in
no,
here,
no, no.
right?
You
I can
can
bring
go
it.
ahead. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's all good.
All right. Let me see here.
Makes me want to. Yes. If he needs a passenger, tell him I'm willing to go.
Let's see.
Yeah, that's the one.
This is it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and play this.
There's really no way I can prove it without revealing my identity and getting myself into more trouble than I have already.
Exactly what's going on up there?
Well, there's several, actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs that are out there of extraterrestrial origin, and they're basically being dismantled. Some are, well, in various stages of completion, built from other parts, and they're being test flown and basically just analyzed.
I was 29 years old, working on the most incredible project in the history of the world. No one has ever been able to show exactly what I saw with my own eyes, until now. Let's travel back in time to December of 1988, when this all started.
The cool part is that we're actually the ones who blew up those bombs.
Ah, that is cool. You guys, you crushed it with that, dude. You crushed it. That just makes you, and then obviously that showed bits and pieces, but I know you have more. This is just really
Holy
gonna.
moly. I mean, yeah, that was just like a little teaser for Back to the Future Day. We had a blast going. We were a whole giant crew. Bob came, his wife came there, friends of his. Mario Santa Cruz, which is one of Bob's friends from back then when this whole thing happened. He was there. We became friends. Amazing person, amazing people. We had one of the greatest times. And Bob was like back in the desert, and he was in it. He just felt like he was back home. I could just tell. So it was a really cool experience to do that. And now our next trailer that's gonna, like, our real trailer that's gonna be coming out, that, stay tuned for that one. Yeah.
Yeah, man, you got me. Look, like I said, when I first saw this, I was juiced. I was like, you get it, like, unbelievable. These are all the words that were popping up in my mind when I first came across you and saw what you were doing. And no, you, like, I don't think anyone has, it's apparent no one has thought about even touching it on this level. So you're man, I want to talk to you again once it comes out, because I
Sure,
know
man, absolutely.
it's going to be fanfare and you're going to be in high demand. Luigi Vendittelli, let's get him on. So yeah, we can show the stuff whenever you're ready.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, show them. Yeah. So
And you can just tell me when to flip them. Yeah,
absolutely.
let's
Let me
do.
do my screen. Yeah, there.
All right, get that one off of here. All right. Okay, so that was this one. Okay, so here we go. And share. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, there it is.
No.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, and then I'll flip through them as you discuss them.
Sure. Yeah, this is just me and Bob and Christopher, who's the lead on my team, on my technical team. This is when Bob came to our studio in Montreal, and he basically sat with us, went over although we had already done that, we went through like one last big, we checked every possible detail. So if you look at the next picture, you'll see Bob pointing at the screen. So we're basically going through every tiny detail of S.O.R, whether it was the size of the hangers, the colors of the walls, the type of bricks, the way things were painted, and everything was covered like in absolute detail.
All right, and Luigi, I'm gonna bring in a fourth person here.
Sure.
He's the engineer of the Woo Train. He's the creator of Spaced Out Radio.
Cool.
Monday through Friday, Mr. David Scott. So David Scott, come on to the stage.
There he is. How you doing, David?
I gotta say that Luigi, I'm sitting here listening in the background while I'm doing our website up, and nothing is geeking me out more than this entire topic. I love Bob Lazar.
That's cool.
If there is a story out there that I want to be true, it is this one.
Oh yeah.
And I apologize if it's been asked already, but I had a couple of questions that I wanted to ask you regarding Bob, because I actually had an opportunity to talk to Bob earlier this summer when his good friend Jim Goodall was at Bob's place.
Oh, that's cool.
And I had said to Jim, I said, Jim, are you still at Bob's? And he's like, yeah, he's sitting right in front of me. I said, like, just like a boy in front of their sports superstar. I'm like, can I please talk to him and say hello? Jim started laughing, and he was like, yeah, of course you can. So Bob gets on the phone. I don't think people see the television side of Bob,
right,
the interview side of Bob, the Jeremy Corbell side of Bob, but people don't understand. This is a very nice human being.
Oh, completely.
He's polite. He acts like the minute he said, hello, Dave, how are you?
Yeah.
It was in a very friendly, like he's known you for years connotation.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I wanted to ask you is through all of his trials and tribulations over the last 34 years, what caught you off guard about Bob that went totally against the grain of the UFO aspect of everything?
Well, first of all, Bob is not a UFO person. I mean, we have to make that like beyond clear. I mean, Bob is not a person who looks into the subject matter. He doesn't really go after this information. He obviously knows he's very famous in the field. He's also knows that George Knapp has been highly involved in it for a long time. But one of the things that I think makes him so credible in terms of his technical and technical and scientific knowledge is the fact that he is a true he's truly a person who has an interest in technology, like in how to make things better, how to make things work, how to you have to know Bob Lazar to understand that. It's something that I think a lot of people don't really know that much. I mean, yeah, some people know he built a jet car back in the 1980s and he worked at Los Alamos. Those are really cool things. But Bob today is still making some freaking cool stuff. I mean, he works with radioactive uranium. He's constantly making these super cool trinkets in his lab that I'm telling, like, I was able to get a few things from Bob that are like way out there. I mean, they're super cool. And there's things that he makes himself that you have to appreciate the type of knowledge this person has to be able to do certain things. And this is something that I find that is oftentimes not highlighted enough about Bob Lazar, because everybody just thinks it's just Bob Lazar, the UFO guy. He worked on a flying saucer. That's Bob Lazar. But he's way more than that. And like you said, he's a gentleman. He's friendly. He's humble. He's completely harmless. I mean, when you get to meet him, you can't not like Bob Lazar. My entire team, and I said this in a previous interview, I had some people on my team that were on the edge. You know, they were like, not too sure. I'm not sure about Bob Lazar. And I mean, it was absolutely unanimous. After they met him, after they spent time with him, they said, there's no doubt this guy is not bullshitting. He's telling the truth. And this is something that is, and one of his good friends, Mario Santa Cruz, always says, he says, every time I read something online about my good friend Bob and they're talking bad about him, he says, Luigi, they don't know Bob Lazar. They don't know my friend Bob Lazar. And I said, I understand what you mean now, because I've also developed a friendship with him. And there's absolutely nothing that I could say, you know, there's something wrong there. No, there isn't. And what's really important also is because a lot of people say, oh, he said it, he didn't say the same thing this time, he said it like that. That's Bob, by the way. That's Bob all the time. You know, so Bob is like that. He'll forget the most mundane things, and that's just the way he is. It's just there's no malice behind that. So I think that he is going to be perceived. We're going to be showing him in his true light in this film. It's been done well before. I'm not gonna say it has. I mean, there's been amazing work done on Bob Lazar prior. This particular film allows him to speak a lot more and to go into the details a lot more. People will be able to understand the technology, the parts, the craft, the environment, everyone that was it by himself. It's him telling us all this. So it really does have a different flavor to it.
It really does. I'm curious, and I'm going to bow out after this question because I don't want to take away from Rob and Nicole's interview with you, because I could spend hours talking about Bob Lazar. we don't know the human side of him.
Right.
We don't know how his family reacted to all of this news going back to 1989 to 34 years later, that he is still a pariah to many people. From a personal point of view, as someone who's got to know him through the creation of what you're doing, humanize him for us. Humanize him to the point. What do we know? Don't know. What about his family? What about his wife? What do they all think of this whole UFO thing that he has gone through, and the hell that he has gone through?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I believe a lot of people know this information. Bob was adopted, so that's something that's important to note. You know, Bob's parents are not his, real parents, because he was adopted. Um, he's somebody who's very much done really interesting things from a young age. He built a jet bike when he was very young, and this was something that his adoptive parents saw, that he had a knack for these things. He's somebody who's very he like just recently was talking to me about his mother. He says, I have to go see her. She hasn't seen me in a while. I want to spend some time with her. He's a genuine good guy. He's like, he cares about the right things. The way he takes care of his wife, the way he's takes care of his surroundings. When we were at his house, we had a lot of people over one time. He's so he wants to serve everybody, makes sure everybody's okay. He is absolutely, and his wife, by the way, Joy, she's a marvel. And they're so good, they're so normal. And this is something that I actually am glad we're going to be showing this in the film. We have beautiful interviews with him and his wife talking. We have interviews of himself talking about years ago and how he felt when all this was happening, how when he came out, how it was affecting his life with friends and family and all that. And you could tell that at the time when it happened, he was scared to death. I mean, when it actually happened and he was kicked out of the project, Bob was frightened. He was scared. It was not a good time. Not only was he going through the fact that he was kicked out of the project, but unfortunately his wife had cheated on him, and he was also going through a divorce, a separation, which was causing him a tremendous amount of sadness. And his friend Mara Santa Cruz, that's in this movie as well of ours, explains all that. Explains, I was there with Bob, and I could see how hard this was on him, how scared he was, how extremely nervous he was at every time he would go out. We were together because he wasn't sure if they were going to kill him or not. He didn't know what was going to happen, because they said, they're not going to just let me go. He goes, it just doesn't make any sense. So you're going to get to see a little bit of a personal side of Bob in this documentary, but spoken from him. And you're going to also see, which I really like, and we're going to be putting it in there because it's just too cool. His wife has horses. They have horses on their property, and we were out there recording him in Oregon. And when we went in there and Joy was feeding the horses, you could see Bob goes to a table and he's preparing food for the horses, and there's the dogs there and he's feeding the dogs. He's like, you see a totally different Bob Lazar than what we're used to seeing. And you see the real man, the real person behind this incredible story. Which, I mean, this is, every time we talk about it, Bob says, Luigi, this was not a huge piece of my life. He says, this was a short-lived thing that I experienced. He says, this is not all about, the flying saucers is not my main thing. And you certainly get to see that a little bit in our film, besides the fact that he's also an explosives expert. And man, did we have fun blowing some stuff up in the desert. That was great, because he used to host a Desert Blast. I don't know if you know about that.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was like bringing him back to the desert to blow things up was probably a highlight for him out of this project. And he says it to us all the time. He goes, that was probably one of the best times of my life. Because we went back and we made him do what he used to do out there. And you could just see the happiness in his eyes. His wife came to see me while he was walking on the dry lake bed. And she says, look at my husband. He's so happy here. And he says it. He goes, he misses the desert. He misses Nevada. You know, he goes, now he's in a paradise where he lives in Oregon, but he certainly is somebody who loves the desert.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure, Dave.
What you're doing, because I think Bob Lazar gets too cut up for the sake of what has been printed over the years.
Absolutely.
And I don't think enough people fully understand that, you know, whether it's Bob Lazar or Bob Gimlin from the famous Sasquatch video, in the end, that there are human beings that are there.
That's right. That's right.
And we're playing with human beings and their lives. And
Yeah.
and I love what you're doing, and I'm so excited to see it. So
Thanks,
we really
Dave.
appreciate it.
Awesome, Dave. Well, thank you.
And Rob, thank you for allowing me to step on here for a couple of seconds. I was just geeking out, and I had to.
Anytime, Dave. Scott,
Oh,
come on, man. Let's get into it. And Luigi has some great images that he's going to run through. And just so you know, Dave, obviously, you have the option to stay on stage or do anything that. Looks like Coley might be having problems, so there is room on the screen for your big aura to fit up here with us.
No, you guys go ahead. This is your show. You're doing a great job. You and Nicole and Luigi, thank you for sharing this amazing story with us. This is just great.
All right. Take care, Dave.
Take care, guys. Goodbye,
Yes,
audience.
sir. All right. The great Dave Scott stopped to pay us a visit. That was totally unexpected and awesome. All right. Yeah. And Luigi, we can jump right back into it. We were talking about this photo.
Yeah, I think you have to just, I guess you toggle to the right so you could see the other photos underneath there.
Yes. Okay.
There. Yeah, there. So this one, yeah, this is basically what I was saying. You know, you got Bob pointing at everything. And I mean, when I say everything, we went through like a fine tooth comb, man. We checked everything down to the last wire on the floor. So things that he could remember, we certainly got them accurate. And the things he could not remember, well, we actually had real. Jim Goodall was one of our consultants at the very beginning, because sometimes there were things that we had to build in the hangar that Bob just didn't remember. He, you know, certain things of like, you know, where do you think the fire extinguishers were, and or where do you think the hoses, how are they connected? And so Jim helped us a little bit in saying, you know, this is how they put these things in hangars. So, because Bob says I just never paid attention to that, so I wouldn't be able to give you the accuracy. So it's accurate at 100% of everything Bob remembers, and then everything else is using experts like Jim Goodall who have experience and images of military hangars, so that we could create something that is highly realistic.
That's totally awesome. Jim Goodall is a friend of the show, a good buddy of mine's, really great guy. Really love the guy, man. So that's
great.
awesome.
And the next one is Bob on the green screen in Montreal, which was really, I mean, we have a couple of days of him on the green screen. This was exceptionally important because we have to think about the value of having Bob Lazar on a green screen. Is you can now take him and export him you can import him into the Unreal Engine 5.3 environment. And then, man, the sky is the limit. Like, things are unbelievably realistic at that point. So you have a real Bob Lazar walking in the hangar, getting close to the craft, explaining some parts of it. It's really going to be, you're going to really enjoy this.
Man.
This one here is one of my crew. This is Vanessa on our team, and she's got Bob. She's filming Bob on the green screen in front of her, and behind her is a television showing where Bob is. So you could see he's in the hangar. You could see the craft a little bit on the TV. So even though he's on a green screen, he can actually see behind her where he's at in the hangar. So that the way that it was being filmed was very, very precise, very cool. So that it provides this hyper realistic, like, you know, show of him explaining, this is what I saw. You know, yeah. It's really, really cool. That's him in his own personal lab in Oregon, which was a place where he did a lot of interviews there. We have beautiful interviews with Bob talking about a whole bunch of things that obviously happened to him during all that time, and details about S.O.R. The following picture is Mario Santa Cruz. That's his friend that's been almost his shadow when things had gotten bad at S.O.R and he was kicked out of the project. I mean, Mario was his like personal, not only friend, but it was like a bodyguard of his, because Mario says, I could tell he was freaking out. He was super nervous. He thought, that's it, they're gonna kill me, something's gonna happen to me. So Mario is this amazingly gigantic teddy bear. I love this guy. Absolutely. We all love this guy. The whole team loves Mario. The next picture is Bob and his wife on their property in Oregon, talking about today, what they do with their lives today, how all this has affected them. So it's going to be really, really nice shots, and it's going to give everybody a new look of Bob Lazar.
Yeah.
You know, so you'll really enjoy that. And now the cooler images, here they are. This is the now, whatever you see in all these images, consider them to be like they're not even at best quality. We had to do this quickly, but you're looking at about 80% quality. Gets even better. Okay. This is the infamous hand scanner, the hand bone scanner that was at S.O.R. So he had to place his hand on this thing, and a light turned on, measured the density of his bones or the length of his bones. And then once it did that, he could get a security card, access, and get into S.O.R.
And I want to see what the people are saying, because guys, this is Unreal Engine 5. This is not real, what you're looking at.
Yeah.
This was created.
That's right.
And it looks so realistic. This is going to be awesome. Okay.
This is not like this is not only is it creative, but it's real size. So it's not like a little picture on a screen. Like once you put your VR goggles on, if ever you want, or in the film, you'll see it. It's really a real environment. It's hard to explain it to people who don't understand the tech, but they'll understand it when they see the film, and they'll also understand it if ever they want to go and experience it on the VR experience.
Yeah, Bob Lazar talked about this.
Yeah, this is the hand scanner. This is the Identimat 2000. This is the one that he get his security ID card. And then the next slide is S.O.R. So this is the hallway. As soon as he opens that double door, he ends up into this infinity hallway, which is, he says, you can't see the end of it. It's got a bowling green color on the bottom where the cinder blocks are. And then the top is just drywall, but it's like a very light green. He says very quiet, very, very desolate, very boring environment. He says kind of an eerie place, because you don't hear a lot of things, and it's hidden inside a mountain, so it doesn't look that legit, but it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then the next one is the nurse station that we created. So this is basically a perfect replica of the nurse station that was at S.O.R, where he was asked to go into this nurse station, and they performed some allergy. The nurse performed some allergy tests on him. They made him drink this liquid that smelled like pine. So this happened in this room, and you'll see that in the film.
Crazy.
This is inside the propulsion lab. This is the lab where he worked in throughout the time that he was at S.O.R. So him and his lab partner Barry were in this lab almost all the time. And in the lab were the ET components. Like there was a fully intact reactor, which is what we're looking at right now. This is a gravity reactor from the craft. And there's element 115 in the bottom left, the triangular brownish piece. That's element 115. And there was an amplifier on the ground, and there was an emitter from the craft on a table. He doesn't know how they got them out of the crafts. All he knew is that when he went into the lab the first time, all these components were there. So he spent, a long time there with Barry doing little tests, taking notes. He says we did every possible test we could do, and we still didn't know how this thing worked. It's not like we figured it out. They didn't. It just did what it's supposed to do.
Crazy.
Now, this is a part of the hangar. So this is like by the hangar door. This is the doors of the facility are angled very, very, they're on a massive slope. So it matches the slope of the hill so that they could camouflage very, very well. We designed it exactly to Bob's specs. So whatever you're seeing is pretty much what he saw. And you can go to the next slide, and then you'll actually see that's inside. Yeah, that's inside the hangar. You could see there's a number 41 on the wall in the back. He doesn't know why it was there. He just says that everything that was in that hangar, every piece of equipment had a number 41 on it. So he goes, it's as if everything was number 41 in the hangar.
Bananas, guys. You see the craft, you see all the intricate detail in every little item that's there is just the thing that takes it to that next level.
And if you go to the next slide, and the crazy thing is that if you go to the next, like every single image, like this is the whole hangar seeing in wide shot. You can't do it with these images, but you'll be able to do. We're going to show it to you in our film. I'll give you an example. This image, when it's rendered at 16K, one picture is 1 gig. Wow. So you could zoom a long time and it's still clear in these images. Wow. Yeah, so they're not light images. So the real final renders are super heavy. And this is, you could see on the bottom right side, there's a long table with these chairs. That was the security table. On the left side, there's some benches. There was work equipment. There's a generator. There's a plasma cutter. And then obviously, right to the right of the craft, you could see those little metal stairs that allow people to climb up to get into the actual craft.
Wow.
And then the next slide is a different point of view from the hangar, is when Bob saw all the adjacent doors opened, and he was able to see that there was 8 other hangars and different crafts.
Okay.
We're not giving you a good shot here because we're keeping the golden shots for when we release. Wait that you see that. You're going to freak out. This is Bob by the craft in the hangar. And I mean, it's a very ominous type of picture, but this is Bob standing right next to the craft, and we turned it into more of an artistic look here with the focal lens, but you could clearly see that he could walk right up to the craft. He's going to be able to explain it as if he was actually there. That's a metahuman. So that's a metahuman looking into the distance. So we're finalizing the Bob Lazar metahuman. We actually hired a person just to make him as a metahuman. We actually have full 3D scans of Bob's face, head, his hair, the whole thing. So when we have the 3D version of it, like the metahuman, it's going to be impeccable. Obviously, the hangar with the craft. The next one is nice. This one looks really good. So this is like the entrance of the craft, if you want to call it, but you need stairs to get up there because there's no way to get in unless you have a little ladder or the steps to get in there. There it is. That's the entrance of the craft. You've got this little stairway. It was a metal, exactly as you see there. You climb in, and as soon as you get up there, you have to literally crawl into the craft, because a normal human will not be able to walk in there. It's too small. It's too low. The angle of the shell is very low. You have to crawl on all fours to get in.
Wow.
This is the entrance. This is the reversed American flag that he saw. It was a sticker of a reversed American flag that was literally to the left of the entrance of the craft. And he doesn't know why it was there. He never asked the question, but he supposes that it has to do with something that it's like, belongs to America for some reason. It's something that they wanted to identify it as theirs. And he said it was there. He goes, a lot of people wonder, why the hell would they have put an American flag? And Bob said, I don't know. It was there. What can I tell you?
Yeah, we like to claim stuff in America and slap a flag all over things. So I think that might have something to do with it.
Maybe. Yeah. This is inside the craft. So now this is basically, you're looking at the main level, if you want to call it. You could clearly see there's 3 seats. And then there's the reactor. You see the hemisphere in front of the middle seat. There's the amplifiers that are around. There's one, it's like a rectangular box behind the middle seat, and there's another one to the right of the right seat. And on the left side, you don't see one, because Bob said they had cut it out with a plasma cutter. So when he went into the craft, one of the amplifiers was missing. So it's an important little detail that a lot of people have missed over the years. So we're going to be very clear and show exactly what he saw.
Mm-hmm.
This is the reactor, and the waveguide is this pipe that is part of the craft. And once the pipe is pulled down and applied on the top of the hemisphere of the reactor, that's when whatever anti-gravity energy, whatever you want to call it, whatever it's producing, once the waveguide is applied on it, it then propagates that gravity wave through the waveguide and goes through the archways and basically is powering the craft. So this is just a little visual of what that looks like.
Wow. Crazy.
Here you have the archways. So this is from the interior of the craft. You see these archways going all around. Now, these archways are important because the archways are the craft's superstructure, which what Bob calls the superstructure, which keeps it intact. But in the middle of these archways, where you have like that rounded off top and the whole area there, one time he actually saw one become completely transparent. And for some reason, some other team was working on it, and the actual texture, whatever, the metal became completely see-through and transparent. And he was also able to see a little portion of that area that became transparent, became like a blue screen with these black symbols. And he clearly remembers that, as absolutely, I mean, it was a screen, and he never thought that would have happened. So that's something that we're going to be showing in our film, our documentary film. And it's going to have this absolutely stunning VFX shot to really give to show the people exactly what he saw.
Ooh, nice.
This is a seat. So this is just one of the seats of the craft. Basically, Bob always said they were so creepy looking. This is a very tiny seat, by the way. They're not big at all. The back part of the top of the back part of the seat would probably reach your knee at most. So they're very, very small. He says a human adult could not sit in that seat. It was not designed for human adult. This is, again, inside the craft. You have the reactor that has been placed right in front of the middle seat. And in this particular render, we took the hemisphere off and put it on the side just to give a little bit of a context of what the reactor looks like in the craft and how everything is all the same color. Everything is all blended together. It's a very, very unique build. I mean, we had to build it like that, so it took a while, but it's clearly not made by us. Clearly. This is the lower level. This is these three big cylinders that are there. They're just hanging upside down. Those are the gravity emitters. So when the reactor is in place and the waveguide is applied to it and the gravity field is then generated throughout the craft, these guys, these three emitters are perfectly positioned underneath the amplifiers that are up on the main level. And for some reason, all this technology works with no connections, no wires, but these emitters are what makes the craft's directional, makes the craft fly, hover, or take off at like almost light speed, because it's basically honing in on one location. These three emitters all point in the same direction, and for some reason they pull the universe to them. So it's a hell of a technology. And here they are. This is just again, this like technical renders to show what these things look like. And they're copper colored on the inside and they're matte black on the outside.
And that is the last slide. That's awesome, guys. Awesome stuff, Luigi. You're blowing people's minds. I know you are. And I'm so excited to see this thing come to fruition. And when does it come out?
We're aiming for February of 2024. I mean,
That's only a few months.
Yeah, you got to check out our website, projectgravitaur.com, or go on our Instagram. We're going to always keep updating it. It's a question of distribution right now. It's not really we know we're going to have the film ready. It's just a question of distribution. So I can't say 100% when, but it's going to be most likely in February. If not February, first week of March, something like that.
All right. Well, man, I really appreciate you coming and spending this time with us, and getting you early too, because I know you have a lot of footwork to do to get this thing promoted and get it out there. And I really appreciate you making this one of your stops.
My pleasure.
Like I say again, Luigi, we got to have you back once it's out and we can really celebrate it.
Sure.
And you've been super great. It's been totally nice meeting you. And once again, do you have any, I mean, obviously this, but do you have where can they find you at or any other information?
Look, if the best place is to find about anything we're doing is, first of all, we have our page, which is wearenot.alone.com. Already, that's like our home, right? But then to find Project Gravitaur, you have to go on and put Project Gravitaur, GRAVITAUR. A lot of people don't do the AUR at the end, .com. So you go to projectgravitaur.com and you'll get all the information on what's going on. Definitely follow us on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Facebook, because we are constantly going to be putting stuff out as the days come. And I'm traveling to Las Vegas next week with some of my team. We're going out to Area 51. We're going to be doing some shots out there. So we're still filming a few things, but the main interviews and the VFX stuff, that's already all in the works. That's already done.
All right, man. Well, like I said again, total pleasure. You guys, Project Gravitaur, as you see it on the screen here, this is how it's spelled. So
That's
Project Gravitaur, and then put .com right after it. That awesome trailer that we showed earlier is on that website, plus all the other information in regards to this, because it's not just a documentary. There's also an experience that will come along with it and comes afterwards. So Amazing stuff, Luigi. You were great. Want to thank you for coming, and yeah, just let's keep in touch, and we'll
Yeah,
talk
man.
again soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. You take care, man. Have a good night.
All right. Bye.
Later. All right, guys. So we're gonna go ahead and pause for the cause and get into our last break of the night as we get ready to jump into hour 3. And what do we have in hour 3? We have some good stuff. We have some really good stuff. This has been a great show, and we are going to be getting into our paranormal report in hour 3 with none other than Bree Hollingshed. So we'll be right back right after this moment. You guys stick tight. right, guys, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio after hour number 3 with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. And for the final hour, we're going to bring in our paranormal report specialist, Bree. But before we do that, to all the space travelers out there, listen, consider taking that next step. Join the club. That's right. You can join the S.O.R. Space Travelers Club for as little as $5 by joining our Patreon. Get some official Spaced Out swag at spacedoutradio.com. And like I promised you, as you see on the screen, the banner says the paranormal report, and we are going to bring in our paranormal reporter and see what she has for us this week. Everybody, welcome to the stage, Bree Hollinshed. Everybody, hello, Bree.
Hey, how are you?
Bree, it's feel like it's been forever, but it's been only about a week, man. Good. What you got? What you got? What you got? I can't wait. I can't wait. What stories do you have for us? Come on, fill us in and get us up to date and let us know what you got.
All right. Well, I'm still on my trip that I'm doing for my paranormal road trip. And so what I've got for you today is everybody knows about Ed and Lorraine Warren. They're basically like the founders. They broke, so much ground in paranormal. And this past weekend, at Mohegan Sun Casino, they actually had the Warrens Seekers of the Supernatural Phantasmacon. So I was actually invited to go, and I got to walk around and literally spend all day rubbing elbows and talking to a lot of absolutely amazing people that are involved in the paranormal field.
That is awesome. Ed and
Yeah,
Lorraine
it was
Warren,
pretty
just so everybody
cool.
knows, is the Conjuring and with Annabelle, right? Is the few different cases a lot of different cases that they
Oh,
covered.
yeah.
But that's who they are. So yeah, what happened?
Yeah, so the Warrens are known for, like, if you've seen the Conjuring movies, you can think of the Warrens. If you've seen Amityville, that's the Warrens. Um, the Annabelle doll, that's the Warrens. It's a Raggedy Ann doll. The doll that you see like in the newer movies, that's got blonde hair and looks real freaky. That's a doll that they use as a stand-in. They will not replicate in any way, shape, or form the Raggedy Ann doll for any of the movies due to the demonic entity that they believe has possessed the doll. So they actually spoke about that yesterday, why they don't have like an actual Raggedy Ann doll in as a replica throughout the movies. But it was pretty cool. I'm actually pretty good friends. The In 1952, the Warrens actually founded NESPR, which is the New England. Let me go through this. New England Society of Paranormal Research, and Dan Riviera is the lead investigator. So he puts together like all the paracons. They specialize in residential cases. They do still do investigations. They still help families. They still have priests that they work with. Wade Kirby is the one who actually takes care of the haunted objects. And when they do this Phantasmacon, they actually bring a select items from their haunted collection, and they bring them in so the public gets a chance to go through and experience it, because the museum unfortunately is closed to the public right now. The town, it did end up getting kind of closed down because due to traffic concerns, security concerns for the neighborhood, because the museum was attached to the house. So this gives the public a chance to be able to experience that firsthand. And I did get a chance to walk through. I actually did a live for that, and it's on my YouTube channel. If anybody wants to see that, I go through and I highlight each item, explaining what it is. So, but of course, the star of the show was Annabelle, which was there. So that was pretty cool to get to see Annabelle right up front. But I mean, it's not like you could get real close to it. They did have it roped off. They had a certain amount of space that's, where you can't get too close to Annabelle. Um, Annabelle's known to cause issues with people's vehicles. In fact, in the 70s or 80s, I can't remember the exact year, a man had gone in with his girlfriend when the museum was open to the public, and he started mocking Annabelle and making fun of Annabelle. And when they left, he ended up in a severe motorcycle accident. He ended up perishing. His girlfriend that was with him was severely injured. She was hospitalized for a while.
Wow.
Thank God she survived. So they believe that the motorcycle accident is kind of retribution on Annabelle's part. When they box Annabelle up, she's actually in her own house that was built for her. And so when you move Annabelle, there's only two people that actually are able to touch the box that Annabelle is in, and that's the son-in-law of Tony Sparrow and Dan Riviera. And he actually has special gloves that he has to wear when he moves the box that Annabelle is in. It's actually got blessed medallions in the fingertips that have been attached in the inside of these massive gloves for protection to try to like put a barrier between him and Annabelle, even though she's in a doll. And it's like it looks like a little dollhouse that she's in. So that was really interesting to see. And when you walked into that area, because they had it separated from like the actual like where all the celebrities, the booths, the vendors were, when you walked into that area, like it just felt ominous. Like there was a whole vibe different. Like you could tell, like the temperature changed, the whole vibe just changed. It was real interesting to like just stand there and watch and see how people reacted to it.
Now, you may not know the answer to this, and maybe you might. I wonder. So, first of all, is the Annabelle doll that you saw, is it the same one they show in the movie?
No, they will not. Annabelle she's kept in the museum, like I said, like in her little box house that they've made special for her. And they will not, she only goes to um how do I there's basically like she's got to have clearance to go places due to the fact of the um entity, I guess you would say, that is associated with her, the attachment. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. The attachment that is associated with Annabelle. She can only be moved like to certain places by certain people, like I said, in a special way. So it's not like they just take her to schools for show and tell or anything like that. And they definitely will not use her in a movie.
Yeah, but when I say that, I don't mean the actual Annabelle. Like, do they create it? Is the one in the movie based off of this one as far as like a replica of it? So does it look like the one we see in the movie? Does it look like the one that you saw in person? Like, is it a
No,
replica of
no,
that doll? Okay.
no. They will not make a replica of her because of the attachment that she has.
Mm,
And they don't want there to be anything remotely associated with the original doll. So, I
wow.
mean, we do see people with Raggedy Ann dolls, smaller versions, bigger versions, but like when it comes to like the movie production, because of the intensity and um the severity of the situations at hand, they will not replicate that doll.
Oh man, you make me want to go Google see if there's a picture of it online, but then I don't want the attachment to attach itself to me, so I don't even know if I want to go look for that. But
You can look for her. I actually got pictures. I actually took pictures in front of her myself. So, and I've got a
whoa,
video of it. Yeah.
maybe I'll find it while you discuss. Okay, what else did you see? And I'm see look if I can find it online.
Well, what was really cool was all the different people that were there that were set up. They had anything from paranormal investigators to they had psychics and mediums. You had haunted locations that were represented, like the Wildwood Sanitarium was there. The Enfield Demon House was represented, the Conjuring House, to you had your para celebrities from Taps. You had Jason Hawes, Steve Gonzalez. You had Cody and Satori. You had let's see, all these YouTubers. The YouTuber crowd was huge. There was Corey and Elton Casty with the Overnight from YouTube. You had Omar from Omar Gosh TV
Oh
was
yeah.
there, exploring what Josh was there. I was there walking around. Kalani ended up showing up and was walking around as well. So there was a decent rep there for, the YouTube crowd. Seth, I might butcher his last name. I want to say Borden was there, but I think I got his last name wrong. James the Fam was supposed to be there, but he ended up being sick, so he wasn't able to show. You had movie celebrities. You had I can't remember his name, but he had the orange. He played the kid in the first Children of the Corn with the orange hair.
Malachi. I think his name was Malachi in the movie. Yeah, I know
Yeah,
you're
he
talking about.
was there signing autographs. The lady who played the witch in The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, she was there along with Arnie Johnson, who was the one that the movie is based off of, who had the court case and was used the defense of The Devil Made Me Do It, where the Warrens were brought in and they actually were able to prove a demonic possession, which lessened his jail time. So I actually got to meet him and got my picture taken with him. So that was a pretty interesting experience.
Dude.
Yeah.
You always find yourself in the middle of some stuff, man. I'm starting to see a pattern here. So
But it's always the good fun stuff. So I mean, it was a great time. I mean, Rob Thompson was there from Ghost Finders. He's a great psychic
yeah.
medium. He's actually a really good friend of mine. So got to sit and hang out and chit chat with him for a while. Who else was there? Uh, I mean, there was just so many people. I mean, people that weren't even on the docket, like showing up, that got last minute invitations. Hey, do you want to come and at least walk around? Like I got one, so
Yeah.
it was a really cool, really exciting experience. They had speakers throughout the day. Tony Spiro was even there himself, and he wasn't just, at a booth. He was actually, when I walked in, he was handing out pamphlets at the front door after you had to go through security. So that was
Wow.
really cool. He handed me my pamphlet, and I happened to be on the phone with my boyfriend, and I walked by and I did double take, and I was like, oh my God, that was Tony.
Handing out pamphlets. So,
So
did you get any spooky merch or anything? What you do? What you
I
get?
got a lot of people were giving away a lot of they were giving me stickers. I got I didn't so much get merch as I got invited to go on some investigations, and so I'll take an invitation for an investigation hands down
Mm,
over a hoodie any day. So
yeah, yeah.
you guys are gonna see some really cool stuff coming out of some of the people that I got to talk to yesterday. That was real exciting. They even had oh, I forgot, Sean Austin was there from 28 Days Haunted, along with Aaron Sagers, who does commentary on Paranormal Cotton Camera, and
Okay.
who also worked on 28 Days Haunted as well. So Sam Beltrus was there, who's an author in the paranormal field, and Monique, I can't remember her full name, but yeah, it was just, there's such a long line of people. The list was huge. The place was packed. They had the whole convention center. I mean, it was packed, side to side, front to back, with all these amazing people under one roof. I mean, you had event planners there. You had the 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 representation of unity was just amazing. I mean, even Ronnie LeBlanc was there, who does all the Bigfoot stuff. So
Mm.
that was really cool getting I actually got to meet him and chit chat with him for a while as well.
That's super duper, man. What's the name of this convention?
It was the Warren Seekers of the Supernatural Phantasmacon.
Or is that a traveling thing, or is that just a once a year different
It
location thing?
just a once a year that they
Okay.
have it. It seems to be every fall here in Connecticut. So they actually have it at the Mohegan Sun, and so it's right on the reservation at the big casino that they've got there.
It seems like, and maybe it's just because I haven't dove deep into the paranormal side at this point, but talking to you every week, I'm gonna be diving deeper and deeper. So I'm sure I'll be versed after a while. But it seems, and maybe this is just a misconception because of that. It seems like all the spooky stuff is on the East Coast. Would you agree? Is it like, do they do a lot of? I don't hear a lot about that. Stuff out here on the West Coast.
Right.
It seems
I
like it's
think
all out there.
Right. And I do think that there is a heavier concentration on the East Coast, but when you think about it, like one thing that I will say till I'm blue in the face is that history equals hauntings.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that 95 to 99% of your hauntings is going to go to the history of the land, your location, even the history of the family that lives in the home, or the history of the business that's in the building. The rest of it, that's where the small little bit of conjuring or witchcraft or whatever attachments, in my personal belief, from what I've seen and what I've dealt with, that's just me personally speaking. That's where I've seen that stuff come in. But so you got to think on the East Coast, like right now, like I'm based out of Connecticut while I'm on my trip. So like I'm trying to hit every hot spot that I can while I'm out here. And there's more hot spots out here for me to hit there. And I'm noticing, like last week when I was doing, because I was doing a location every day, and last week took on a theme all on its own, and it was amazing, and I was really excited to see how my trip progressed throughout the week. But it was all like hospitals, like abandoned hospitals, abandoned schools for the feeble minded, insane asylums, sanitariums. They have those more on the East Coast, where they've
Yeah.
actually been put on the National Registry of Historic Landmarks. Whereas when you start getting more Midwest, more out towards the West where you're located, if they didn't have a purpose, not a lot of people were pushing to save the location, even if it had a historical significance. If it got torn down, it got
Hmm.
torn down. If it got repurposed, it got repurposed. Whereas I noticed more of those here, and they're more closely located. And even though they might be abandoned, cities have bought them and built parks around them,
Yeah.
so you can still enjoy them and at least still see them. They'll maintain them to a degree so they're not completely like crumbling in on themselves too much, or at least they're trying to. But there is some sort of preservation going on. Plus, you got to think, where was America founded? Where did the people come in from?
Right.
Everybody landed on the east and then moved out west for the most part.
Hmm.
So there's
That's
more
what I'm
history
saying.
here. There's more historically haunted locations here. So it makes more sense that on the east they're gonna have more paranormal events. You're gonna have more locations that offer you to come in and rent it out for the night or for the weekend, even, and have be like Hinsdale in New York that I did the 3 day 2 nights at that I spoke about last week. You're able to rent those out, for longer durations, or however long, you might need them for yourself or for a group or an event even. They're going to have more of those here because of the history. The history goes deeper, with how the population was here on the East Coast. And you got to think too, you know, look at what happened in Salem with the witch trials.
Right.
You had more of that type of stuff, the heavy religion, where anything out of turn from that heavy religion was considered questionable and you were tried for it.
That's true, man. A lot of wicked stuff back in the early days, and when we were talking about, yeah, I mean, from the moment we landed here, and obviously, yeah, a lot of the stuff that took place. I mean, you're totally right on that, Bree. You're right on point, and that makes a lot of sense on why that would be the case. Because yeah, when you look at out here, if I could think of any spooky spots, ones that aside from we have colonial houses out here, but a location would be something like the mystery house that we have out here
Yeah.
in San Jose, California, and then Alcatraz, which is also
Yeah.
there, and then some of the old prisons seem to be spots where people may indicate something going on. But yeah, you have a lot of infrastructure, literally from the 1700s still in use and still standing out there on the East Coast. So yeah, I guess I could see that. That's pretty wild. What do you ever come to the West Coast? Well, I think Grant asked you this, but what was your answer to that? Do you come to
I
the
have
West Coast
not
to do
been
this?
out west yet, but I am more than willing to go out west.
Yeah,
So,
Bree needs to go west. Bree goes west.
there's actually I'm actually talking to a few people, and the possibility of seeing me go west in 2024 is very much it's a high probability. And I will say this too, you're most likely going to see me go international with my trip next year as well. Yeah, so
So
that
some
came about
international
yesterday from the
reports.
Paracon.
Oh, okay. You heard it here first, guys. Bree's going
Yep.
international. The paranormal report is going nat international. So we're gonna get story and there's like there's certain countries out there and locations that obviously the history is thousands of years and going back into who knows when. So I know you're gonna get a lot of good stuff out there.
Oh
Definitely.
yeah, we're working on seeing where this is going to go, and this is it's definitely it's interesting to see how one road trip has now blossomed into like everything that's now transpiring. But yeah, the West Coast is definitely on the list for 2024. I've already had a couple people ask me to come to events out there and do some investigations as well. So trying to get that nailed down and the loose ends tied up. But sometimes it takes a little bit, but it's in 2024 and I still got a little bit of time to get that figured out. So, I mean, one thing with the West too, you got to think is that you had the gold rush.
Yeah.
You had a lot of pop-up towns that burn out as soon as the mines burn out. If the gold dried up, if the copper dried up, the iron ore, whatever it was they were mining out of the veins, those towns became ghost towns. And so a lot of those places, you do have a lot of haunted history there as well. Like Butte, Montana is a huge one. I know that you even in California, you would have a lot of the I can't remember the exact name of them. It's escaping my mind. I can see the type of buildings, but like the Spanish type buildings, where they would have the different oh, it's totally escaping me. Like I can see it in my mind and I can't think of the name of it. But you
Hmm.
would have
Well,
different
yeah, I
school.
think
I
of the
know there's
song.
one in California that was like a school for boys. That's reportedly extremely haunted. I think it's up in Northern California. It's been investigated a couple of times. And one thing too that from what I've heard from other investigators is that um you know and I've noticed it here on the East Coast too, and even in the Midwest, is that even though the stigma is not as bad as it was, it does still exist. And there are states that don't want to acknowledge it, that make it very difficult at the state level for places to open up for paranormal investigating. And if the states, even if the state might be okay and might not really shun it too much, you've got a lot of towns that shun it because they don't want that stigma. They want people to come and live there. They want to make it
Mm,
hospitable and friendly and come raise your kids and build your house with your white picket fence and your
yeah,
2.5 kids. So
yeah.
unfortunately, from what I've heard from people, California is more of they want that family atmosphere, and they don't want people to be scared going there or living there. So they do kind of shun the whole paranormal a lot out there.
Yeah, and I never really thought about it like that. And yeah, because you're in this, and yeah, you bring good points to light, and that all makes total sense. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't want if I'm trying to, bring people to my town, I sure wouldn't bring up the haunted preschool around the corner or anything like that. That's a fact. And I didn't think of you brought up also the gold mining ghost towns, and yeah, I mean, and actually I don't know why I didn't think of that, because I usually make it a point to drive through those places, and I've been to so many of them. I can't even, but I haven't experienced anything there. But this it's about, like you said, the history equals hauntings, and I like that. You might want to trademark that, put that on some
Thank
t-shirts
you.
and some hats, yeah, because
I
it
actually
makes
am
a lot of
kicking that
sense.
around for merch right now. That's something I've been talking about with a graphic designer, is seeing what we could do with some merch on that one.
Yeah, I got some merch ideas too. I'm trying to keep it under lock and key, man, because people, I'll call it mimicking. People like to mimic
Yep.
out there, you know what I mean? And if you're not careful, you'll see your slogan. Oh, but this one might go out there. I mean, okay, but you could think of another one. But yeah, it's tough to try to let something like that slip. But I think you got something going, Bree, and I think this paranormal report is going. So loving it, and loving. Do you have anything else for us? What do you got? Do you got anything else juicy for us to leave us with, or what do you got for us?
Well, I can lead off with this, and I can pick up with it next Sunday.
Okay.
I will have more information to drop. Um, I if are you familiar with the new Hulu documentary that dropped, Monster Inside?
No.
Okay, check it out. It's about Russ, who created McCamey Manor as an extreme haunt. And it's an all year haunt where you basically have to sign your life away. And you go, and it's 8 to 10 hours with the promise of, if you fulfill what is considered your quote unquote storyline of abuse, extreme abuse, they're allowed, he's allowed to, with the paperwork that you sign, the waiver, you can basically be tortured just about to death. Lawyers have actually looked over the paperwork, and the show talks about the extremeness of extreme haunts, because evidently this is huge. Actually, they're really popular, from what I understand, on the West Coast. Um, and But yeah, so Russ has had to shut down McKamey Manor quite a few times, and he relocates it. People are vying to for a chance to go to this, even though the truth of the situation has been made to light. Well, this documentary, one of the main stars in it is Chris Smith, and him and I have actually become really good friends. He approached me when I was on my first road trip in September and said, "Hey, I think that we should do a cross collab of horror with paranormal." And I was like, "You know what? That could really work. I would love to work with you on that." We talked some more about it. October 15th, I actually went and started the collaboration with him. I went up to Michigan. He took me to two Halloween haunts. I went to Eloise Asylum, and that was really interesting, because Eloise does not let paranormal investigating go on in the tunnels. The tunnels are always closed, but for Halloween, that is part of their VIP package. You get to go through for a haunt that they've created through part of the tunnel system underground. So that was pretty cool getting to do that. And he took me to another place called Hush. We actually did he had a podcast, and we went on and talked about it. And then the next part is him doing some investigating with me. So the first part of our collaboration with an investigation actually starts November 6th. I'll leave you with that, and I can pick up with that next Sunday.
Yeah, Bree left us on a cliff there. That's actually pretty cool. And Bree, so here's what you guys could do actually, and this will actually tie in really nice to Bree's cliffhanger here. So homework assignment: go watch Monster Inside this week some point, and then when we talk again next Sunday, Bree fills us in with the rest of the story. You know, you'll have more insight on what it is that she's discussing. So that's the homework for the week. So beautiful, beautiful, Bree, beautiful. Okay, so with that being said, so we only have 15 minutes left here. So you are more than welcome to hang out if you want to. It is totally cool. We can let you go either way. No pressure.
Hey, I'll hang out for an extra 15 minutes. That's all right.
Okay,
Thank you.
cool. All right. So what we're gonna do is jump into Lon Strickler, friend of the show. Everybody knows Lon Strickler. So we do this occasionally and cover cryptid stories from Lon Strickler's phantomandmonsters.com. So we're gonna pick a couple here and just kind of, see what they do, see how they make you feel, see if they creep you out. Pretty spooky. Now, apparently, these are in a lot of cases. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think in every case, really, that these are accounts that Lon receives from people out there that write into him and give him these stories of things that have occurred to them, and then he posts them on his website along with other things. So we're going to go over a couple of those, see what Lon has in store for us. Let me get, I have some spooky music. I don't know if I have any here. Let me see. Nothing spooky. Let me see. Is this spooky? No. Yeah, I'm going to fit this. No, that makes sense. If a tree falls in the forest, no one's around here. It didn't make a noise, sort of. And I understand you, and I feel you on that. We have one more to fit in. It's the Minnesota experiencer continually abducted since 1997. So this is from Lon. So Lon says starting in, well, actually, this is the, let's see, this is the experiencer. Starting in 1997, I've been taken repeatedly. The incidents all happened within 50 miles of Lake Minnewaska in west central Minnesota. As far as I can tell, it happens around once a month, probably more. I have no memory of it after it happens. At first, I wasn't sure what was going on. Lon says I received the following account. I began experiencing anxiety, fatigue, and insomnia. Periodic headaches, unexplained cuts, scars, rashes, and bruises. I began having strange, confusing flashes of memory. At first, they were just a terrifying jumble of fragmented images, sounds, and sensations. After a few years of thinking I was starting to crack up, they eventually started to come together and become more distinct and orderly. At this point, I have a pretty clear memory of what.
But abductions make me nervous. I'm not gonna lie.
You guys heard it first. We found something that really creeps me out. She goes into paranormal this, paranormal that, underground this, underground that, but abductions creep her out. So but that's nice to hear.
Just like I hate spiders. I hate spiders, and no, I hate abductions.
So, and we're going to leave off on that note. That was nice, Bree. Thanks for I mean, you're going to open up to us more and more every week anyway. So, awesome. I think we had a nice little time with Lon Strickler's stories from phantomandmonsters.com. Make sure you guys go over there and support his website and maybe read one of these or a few of these. It's Halloween season. We still have a few days left. And Dave Scott mentioned he won't be in on Halloween, so I believe I'll be filling in for him. And I don't know, maybe I have something spooky in mind. I don't know. I'll see how I'm feeling. So with that being said, Bree, before I start closing this show out, do you have anything to say to the crowd?
You guys have we got Halloween coming up. I hope you guys had a spooky weekend this weekend, and I hope you guys have a wonderfully spooky Halloween, and don't forget to be safe with whatever you do to celebrate.
Boom.